Hi there! This video will talk about how to format your in-text citations and your references according to APA 7. First, let's talk about in-text citations. When you summarize or paraphrase information, you need to include the author's last name as well as the year of publication. However, including the page or paragraph number is optional but encouraged. You can see this in the examples on the screen. The first two options just include the author's last name and the year of publication. If you say the author's last name in the sentence, make sure that you put the year of publication in parentheses immediately after it. If you do not mention the author's last name in the sentence, then you put the last name, a comma, and then the year of publication in parentheses at the end of the sentence. The period always goes after the citation. If you would like to include a page or paragraph number, you can look at these examples. If you say the author's last name in the sentence, then the year still goes immediately after it in parentheses. However, the page number would go at the very end of the sentence. Inside your parentheses, you would have a lowercase p, a period, and then the page number. If you do not mention the author's name in the sentence, then at the very end of the sentence you would have the author's last name, a comma, the year of publication, a comma, and then a lowercase p, a period, and the page number in your citation. So what if there aren't any page numbers? There are a couple different options here. As you can see in the first example, if a page number is not available, you can use the paragraph number. Obviously, paragraphs aren't likely to be numbered in a lot of your sources, so you just simply count them. Instead of p period for page, you would write lowercase p-a-r-a period for paragraph. If the information is from multiple paragraphs or a range of paragraphs, you would use p-a-r-a-s period, and then the first number, a dash, and then the last number. If the information you're talking about comes from a table instead of a paragraph, you can list the table number as well. What do you do if your source has two authors? It's very similar to having one author. If you say the author's names in the sentence, you can see in the first example, according to Rogers and House, the year still goes immediately after them in parentheses. Make sure that you spell out the word "and." If you do not say the author's name in the sentence, and you need to include both the author's names in your citation at the end, make sure you use the "and" symbol instead of the word "and" between the two authors' last names. What if your source has more than two authors? If your source has more than two authors and you would like to state the author's names in the sentence, you would only type out the author that is listed first. Then you would have a space and you would type ET, and then another space, and AL period. After this, you would provide the year of publication. If you do not mention the authors in the sentence, then the same information goes in your citation at the end of the sentence. Remember to include a comma after the period of AL and before your year of publication. What if an organization is the author? If you would like to say the organization's name in the sentence, you would treat it just like a solo author. If your organization has a well-known abbreviation, in your first citation, you would spell out the entire organization's name, such as the first example, United States Department of Agriculture, and then in brackets, you would supply the abbreviation, USDA. Then, in every in-text citation after that, you can just refer to the organization by their abbreviation. You can see this in the second example. What if you don't know who the author is? If you don't know the author of a publication, you can use a shortened version of the title in its place. You just want to use the first word or two of the title, or the most important words. For example, if the first word of the title is "the," you really wouldn't use that. If the work is a longer work, like a book or a report, make sure that the title goes in italics. You can see this in the top example on the right. If the work is a shorter work, such as an article, webpage, or chapter, then it would go in quotation marks. You can see this in the second example on the right. What if a date isn't provided on your source? If a date isn't provided, you will use a lowercase n period, lowercase d period in the place of the year of publication. This stands for no date. The n period, d period just goes in the same place that the year would go. Let's talk about your reference page. We are going to discuss how to format your reference page and how to cite some common electronic sources. Start your reference page on a new page. At the top of the page, make sure the word References is bold and centered. Then you can enter all the information in for your sources. Your references will be organized in alphabetical order by the author's last name. Your reference page also needs to include hanging indents. A hanging indent is basically the opposite of a regular indent. For a regular indent, the first line is moved over. A hanging indent, all of the lines beneath the first line will be indented. You can set up your hanging indent before or after you enter in all the information about your sources. There are a couple ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you my favorite. You need the ruler to appear on your screen. So go to the View button at the top of the screen and click on Ruler. This will make the ruler appear. If you're setting up your hanging indent after you have all of your information on the page, highlight all the information for your sources. Then hover over the bottom triangle of the ruler. The words hanging indent should appear. Click and drag it to the 0.5 mark. This will create a hanging indent for each of your sources. Now let's talk about actually formatting your sources on your reference page. The first thing you will list will be the information about the author. In APA, you use the author's full last name, a comma, their first initial, a period, and then their middle initial, and then another period. If they do not list the middle initial, that's okay. What if you have multiple authors for your source? For this version of APA, you will list the information for up to 20 authors. Make sure that you separate each author's name with a comma and that you use the and sign before the last author. Authors should be listed in the order in which they appear on the original publication. What if you don't know who the author is? If a source has an unknown author, then you start with the title of the source. APA has some special rules when it comes to formatting your titles on your reference page. Longer works should be italicized, and shorter works should just be left alone and look like the rest of your body text. There are also special rules about capitalization. When formatting your titles on your reference page, make sure that the first letter of the first word of the title, as well as the first word of the subtitle, are capitalized. Any word that appears after a colon or a dash should also be capitalized, as well as proper nouns. Everything else should be lowercase. The formatting requirements for academic journal articles are a little different. For the actual journal article, you want to capitalize the first letter of the first word in the title and subtitle, the first letter after a colon or a dash, and all proper nouns. However, for the title of the journal, you want to make sure that that is italicized, all major words that are originally capitalized are still capitalized, and keep any unconventional capitalization that may occur. At the bottom of the screen, you can see how these things might be formatted. For example, you might have an article title that is called APA Citations, Awesome Examples. On the first line, this is how it might originally appear. Below it, you can see how it should be formatted in your reference page. When you look at the journal title, you could see that it's basically formatted the exact same way originally and in your reference page. Let's talk about how to format your citation for a web page or other online content. The first thing you need is the author's last name, a comma, their first initial, a period, their middle initial, and then another period. In parentheses, you will then include the year, a comma, the month it was published, and then the date. Outside of the parentheses should be another period. Then you will provide the title of the web page and then the website's name. This will be followed by the direct URL where this information can be found. It's also common that you might find a newspaper article online. To format this, you'll start again with the author's last name, a comma, their first initial, a period, their middle initial, and another period. In parentheses, you'll provide the year of publication, a comma, the month it was published, and then the day it was published. A period goes outside of the parentheses. Next, you'll provide the title of the newspaper article, and then you will provide the title of the publication in italics. Again, this will be followed by the direct URL where this information can be found. Citing online scholarly articles is a little bit different. Some articles will provide a DOI. If this is provided, you start with the author's last name, a comma, their first initial, a period, their middle initial, a period, and then in parentheses the year of publication, outside of the parentheses a period. Next, you type out the title of the article and then provide a period. After that, you'll type out the title of the periodical, insert a comma, and then type the volume number. Just type out the actual number, such as 5 or 7. Don't actually type out the word volume. Both the title of the periodical and the volume number should be italicized. The next thing you need to do is insert parentheses. Inside the parentheses will be the issue number. Make sure that there is not a space between the volume number and your parentheses with your issue number. After the issue number, you'll insert a comma and type out the page numbers. Then you'll provide a period, and after that the DOI information. If the scholarly article was published on a website without a DOI, the citation is almost exactly the same. The only difference is that instead of the DOI, you will write the words retrieved and then the month and day, comma, year, comma, from, and then provide the URL where you retrieve this information. These are just a couple ways that you can format your sources. There is a lot more information about how to format different types of sources. One of my favorite places to find more information about how to format your references according to APA 7 is the Purdue OWL. There are many other websites that can help you with this too, but that one's just my favorite. I hope this video helped you learn more about APA 7.